What's up, Facebook? Brandon Hanley here. Fatherhood for the rest of us. Voice of a generation. Generation of fathers who are doing their best, man. Putting themselves in positions to be successful at home with their families, with their children, wives, lives, and communities. I say voice of a generation, and I enjoy that because it was about a year ago right now that I published my first podcast to iTunes, and I was having some difficulty swallowing it. I was like, well, good morning, brother. I was like, why would anybody be listening to me? Why should I be doing this? And, it was somebody else, Adam Walton, who was coaching me on mindset at the time. He goes, dude, you give yourself the permission. You don't need to wait for somebody else to be giving you permission to do what you think you should be doing. And you're the one who kind of sets that tone. He goes, you're the voice of a generation. Ever since he said, hey, you're the voice of a generation, I put it on the podcast, and a lot of times I laugh, but in all seriousness, here we are. I would say it's a voice of a generation, the shared voice of a generation, where we see more and more fathers showing up and asserting themselves. I think, I forget the name of the gentleman who put it out there. He was in the Dad Bloggers group, and he called it being a dadvocate, right? Advocate for dads. Being a dadvocate. And that's really all that this is. We need to, just advocate for ourselves every once in a while that we are more than, simply breadwinners. We are more than the one who teaches our children what it's like to be a man. And, that in itself is just all encompassing, right? What is it like to be a man? You're going to get the same answer of what it's like to be a man or what does it mean to be a man. It's going to be nearly the same answer as what it's like to be a father. What does it mean to be a father? And the same answer in that it is going to be varied, not drastically, but in nuances from whoever answers that, and myself included. And my definition of both of those changes every day as I learn, more and more. Of course, there are the core values. There are the core, Casey, what's up? There are the core sentiments of what it's like to be a man, or what does it mean to be a man, and what does it mean to be a father. But every day, that changes, and it changes as my children grow, changes as my wife and I grow, it changes as the world around us is changing up, and that's part of the beauty. That's part of, like, if people are always like, hey, what have you learned? Is there one thing that you've learned from doing the podcast and having all these conversations over the past year with all these, dads, and every one of the fathers that I've had on the show, I would deem as a success. And that's the other, the same thing with what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a father? What is success to you? Those are all variables that you control. Those are all variables that you own. You get to make that up yourself. And that is something that I learned over the past year. Every guest on the show, every interaction that I had, all had kind of core beliefs, but they all did it in their own ways. They all struck out their own paths. They all had their own approach based on what they felt like was best. And again, you're going to change that day in and day out. I think another thing that I learned over the past year of podcasting, first of all, one freaking year ago, and it seems, I was talking to my buddy Jeremy Todd earlier, it seems like 10 years ago, and not in the sense of like it's been long and drawn out. It's just been the sense of I've gotten so much out of it. A lot of times you'll hear people say that it goes by, everything kind of goes by so fast. Where's John Daly? John Daly had the day is long, but the years are short, right? And I think John Daly, now that a year has gone by, I think I kind of understand a little bit of that, but I really feel like in the past year that it's been just like I've smushed about 10 years into it. Smushed about 10 years into this year of podcast and going out there and realizing the impact that I can have not only on my, I would say almost more, I realized the impact that I could just have on my own life before trying to have an impact on others. And I think that a lot of us, or maybe just myself, we run out there, we're like, I can impact your life, I can impact your life, and we forget to impact our own life. Can you believe that you could forget to impact your very own life just by participating in your own life, for showing up in your own life? I did a video series last year, and a lot of it had to do with fatherhood and showing up and being there for yourself, and being present as a father. But what about being present for yourself? How does that look? We can be present for our children, we can be present for our wives, and all the time we forget ourselves. Impact! Rick Berman. Jew for Jesus. I love you, Rick. We forget the impact we can have on our own lives. What is the impact that you have had on your own life? When was the last time you sat down and you plotted out your own destination? Said, man, you know what? Everything's kind of cool. We're all good where we're at. I'm going to take 10, 20 minutes and I'm going to map out some awesome destination for myself. I'm going to map out some awesome destination for my family, but more importantly, for myself. Because we have not put ourselves first, and I think a lot of fathers have not put themselves first in a long time. And I don't say it to put yourself first to be inconsiderate to others. Put yourself first is in be generous to yourself as well. I've been hitting on this a for Jesus. I've been hitting on it a lot. That's just one of the things that I hit on is take some time for yourself. You are so important, and the kind of it's a little bit like that monetary thing, right? If you follow Darren Hardy or Robert Kiyosaki or any of the fundamental, what was that, Richest Man in Babylon, pay yourself first, and that's okay. I'm not saying not give yourself everything. Give yourself a little bit. What can you give to yourself? Be generous to yourself, because you deserve it, right? Do you know what that feels like, to give a little bit of you to yourself? Because, how else can you give to others until you give to yourself? It might sound weird. I don't know. I don't even know if that's the right logic. But that is one of the things that I learned over the past year of doing the podcast, of doing kind of all this self-discovery, self-personal growth. And, the other thing I know that I learned a lot was to refocus on the relationship with my wife, with Meg, and how big of a part that played in fatherhood. Making that relationship with your significant other being something paramount, and sometimes that comes before the children, because the children are getting a ton out of you already. Look, man, and I think that it's only been if I'm just getting done reading a book right now called Do Fathers Matter? The 40s and 50s that Mr. Nice Guy addresses this very subject. That's cool. I'll have I'll have to check that out, Rick. But it wasn't until even 40 years ago that this nation, 40, 50 years ago, this nation became kind of like a child-centric nation. And just like anything else, just like any FDA-approved drug, just because somebody says that it's okay to go ahead and use, or GMO, or what are the long-term ramifications of that, right? And I think that we're seeing it now. We're seeing the long-term ramifications in the fact that we literally see signs that say adulting is hard. And guess what? It is, because we've done this child-centric thing for the past 40, 50 years. And it's like, okay, maybe enough's enough. The kids, they're cool. And we as the past baby boomer, I don't know what do we call it, with a Gen X, Gen something or other. We're seeing the impact of that, and the impact of that is now it's taken us long enough to learn how to adult, because we were in this child sensitive space, and that's cool. That's real cool. But now it's taken the millennials an additional 10 years to move out of their basements and into real life. How, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Maybe it's time to stop this child-centric stuff and take a step forward or take a step back. I don't know what direction we need to step in that says that let's also focus on being adults and kind of growing up and doing more outside of simply rearing our children, and paying attention to each other and helping each other come along. And that's some of the stuff that I learned this past year in fatherhood for the rest of us. If as always, if you have not checked out the podcast, an amazing amount of awesome people on the show over the past year. Looking forward to this next year. I've already got plenty in the quote-unquote can. Fatherhood for the Rest of Us podcast. Check that out. If you are a father who oftentimes feels like they're overwhelmed, the world's on their shoulders, can't get out of your own way kind of father, stop on over by Fatherhood for the Rest of Us, a Facebook group, private group, where we just kind of talk about being a dad and some of the challenges that come along with it, and some of the celebrations. I'm more of a fan of celebrating all the awesome stuff that's going on in fatherhood than not. So stop on over there and listen. If the groups aren't your thing, if you just want to have a conversation about what it looks like to be the father that you want to be, hit me up. I'm available for coaching. I'm taking one client right now, and reach out to me. You can reach out to me right through Facebook, or you can go to Brandon.G.Handley. Actually, just go Brandon at Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. That'll get you there. Or check me out on fatherhoodfortherestofus.com, which is where you can find the podcast. Connect with me there. That's it, guys. That's a lot of what I've learned over the past year on Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. Take it easy.